Welcome back. I know it's been a while since I've made a video, but I've been busy working on Hunt Track, and that's pretty much taken all my weekends and time is working on that track. I learned a lot through the process, made some mistakes. I was baking sand, and if you saw in a previous video how I'm bending the track, that'll make sense. Someone did suggest using a PVC heater, but it turns out those are almost impossible to find in my town. There was an electrician that had one, and so I borrowed his, but every time I tried to use it, it would blow the breakers. And so I ultimately ended up going back to just baking sand. So lots of baking sand. One thing I did learn is that the sand works better, or doesn't take as long, obviously, when I'm doing it in the summer versus when I'm doing it in the winter. In the winter, it was cold outside, had to heat the sand, took longer to heat it, and it did cool down quicker. But in the summertime I could actually speed up the process because the sand stayed hotter for longer and I could keep things moving on. So, long story short, all the track is built. Now I'm in the process of painting it all, and actually in the next week I should have it all painted. I'm painting it with truck bed liner from Harbor Freight, and it's good stuff, and I have probably about half of it done, or just over half, and in the next week or so I will have the rest of it done. So, lots that I've learned. I'm excited to share what the track looks like, and that's what I'll show you now. Okay, today's the day. Finally, with the help of my buddy Mike Arnold, got the whole track built and put together. So now you're going to take a little ride on it. This isn't going to be like what Halloween's like, because it'll be much different, more props, things will be divided up. But anyway, here we go. So, you're going to load right there where the cart's sitting, and then I'm going to set the camera onto the seat. So here we go on the track. And they'll unload right here, and then we'll come around the corner and load the next group right here again. So rather than just always showing you the highlights of the things I do want you to know that I make a lot of mistakes along the way, and even when I'm following someone else's ideas, I usually put Todd's adjustment to them, and I did do a pretty significant fail, which is I started building out a cart, and I built it out of 2x2 wood and then just really thin 1/4 inch plywood. Built the whole thing, weighed it, and decided that it was significantly overweight. The cart ended up weighing like 165 pounds, and I would really like the cart to be less than 100. So just the bottom piece of the cart with the wheels, that part alone is about 65 pounds. So I have about 30 to 40 pounds to work with. I probably will redo it and do it more like the one that I learned from Chamber of Souls, probably using 1x2 wood and then styrofoam, the pink styrofoam that you can get at Home Depot or Lowe's. So that'll be further down the road. I'm actually holding off on building the cart because once I build it, then I have to have a place to store it. We are about 4 months out from Halloween, so we're getting closer, and things are picking up speed around here because I'm starting to work on other props and things. One of the things I am spending quite a bit of time on right now is really thinking through all the different zones or scare spaces in the haunt. Right now I think I have it laid out to about 10 spaces, and then I have a loading zone and unloading zone. The loading zone is actually the first space, but I don't count the unloading zone because I won't necessarily have a scare in that area. So I'm thinking about the flow of a storyline. I came up with an idea. We live in a housing tract called Tyner Ranch, so I kind of came up with the idea of Old Man Tyner, when he was building the housing tract, decided to build it on an old cemetery. And so then I'm going to build on that story, and the idea is I'll create like a little preview video that people can watch when they're standing in line, that gives them an idea of kind of what to expect in the haunt and what's going on in the haunt. And I'll give you more details about that as we go on. Another piece of this that's been going on is my good buddy Mike has been working on setting up a skeleton as an animatronic.
Where danger at all risk. Once inside, do stay close to your friends. I would hate for you to get separated from them permanently.
The idea is that when people get into the cart and the ride starts, the first thing that'll happen is this skeleton will give them instructions to keep their hands inside the cart and to stay seated, etc., etc. What was funny is I originally was just going to have them say something like that, very formal or whatever, and then I was like, no, it needs to be more than that. So I used ChatGPT and had ChatGPT write me a little poem, which ended up being way too long. It was like 9 stanzas. So I've reduced it down to about 2 or 3 stanzas, and we'll probably use some form of that for my skeleton, for the skeleton to recite before they kind of start off into the haunt. So a little more details on that as we get closer, and I'll give you an update on the skeleton and maybe even interview Mike and talk about his progress on building the animatronic. As I'm thinking through each zone of the haunt and figuring out what needs to go in each space, now the fun part is I get to build props that go in those spaces to help set the stage of what's going to be in those spaces. So I have a prop that I'm going to show here, and I won't tell you what it is. I'll have more video on that as it moves forward. I'm also going to do a cemetery theme pretty much for everything in the haunt this year, mainly because I have lots of cemetery related stuff. I have skeletons and tombstones and things like that. So for this year, just to keep it simple, sticking with the cemetery theme. In the future, the themes could be very different. Another cool thing that happened recently is I have not been on the app OfferUp in probably 6 months, and so randomly I just went on to OfferUp and I did a search on Halloween, and there was a lady that was selling. In the picture it showed like 3 or 4 tubs, and it said that she was selling the whole lot for $100. So just from what I could see in the picture, it looked like some decent stuff. So I went ahead and purchased it. The last thing she told me before I headed to go pick up the stuff was make sure you bring a truck. And I don't have a truck, but I emptied out my wife's van, and thank goodness I did, because when I got there I had, I think, 8 tubs plus 2 boxes plus several props that I just had to stuff in the front seat at where the feet were. If she would have given me one more tub, I would not have had room for it. So I've gone through that stuff, and I will be working on some of those props, upgrading, using some of them. I got rid of about 1.5 tubs worth of stuff, but I ended up with probably about 150 different items that I could use for various things in the haunt at some point. So definitely a score, and now I need to get off of OfferUp because I'm running out of space to store all the stuff that I'm accumulating. And there is a plan for that coming up. We are going to be building a shed, and the track is ultimately going to be stored on the side of the house under a little protected lean-to. So we have ideas for that. We just haven't had time to do them yet, and those ideas may not even come to fruition until after Halloween, so it may just be stacked on the patio until we get there. So that's about it for this episode. That kind of catches you up. Hopefully I'll be a little more frequent on my videos now that I've gotten done doing track. Please like this video if you can, subscribe to my channel, and that way you'll get alerted if there's future videos, and I really appreciate you checking out The Art of the Hunt. Thank you.